Hi everyone, Adam Gore with Clemson Extension here, and we are a little over 2 weeks past the start of our lawn renovation. The herbicides are still coming along. I've had to do another application in certain areas just to make sure we get good control. But this week, seeing how we have a little bit of time, we're going to be talking about grass selection. And some of the things you need to think about before you just go out and put out sod or sprigs or seed or whatnot. So there is a thought process behind how we select the grasses. So we're going to get into it and talk a little bit about all of the grasses that are available to us and find one that fits your need.
So here are the two types of grasses I'm hoping to have in my yard. The first is a Bermuda grass. Now Bermuda grass, a lot of people can consider it weedy due to its aggressive nature and having to constantly pull out flower beds and whatnot. But as we look at it, we can kind of see it has a thinner leaf blade compared to that of the St. Augustine. Some people will sometimes confuse St. Augustine with centipede, but the easiest way to determine the difference is one, see how the actual leaf blade is coming off of the stem. We have this almost 90-degree bend of the leaf coming off of the sheath. And also, if we look at the tip of the leaf, it almost looks like a little canoe end. And the St. Augustines typically have this wide leaf blade.
So when we talk about what type of grass to put in, there's always a few things we have to look at before we get a specific species in mind to plant. So what we have to consider are, what do we expect of our lawn? Are we looking for one of these pristine, high manicure yards, or are we looking for something that we just want to cover the ground? So with that, it involves how much traffic is the yard going to get, how much shade is the yard going to get, how much work do you want to put into the yard, so what are the irrigation allowances, and things like that. So in South Carolina, we typically have 4 warm season grasses that we see. And a warm season grass is a grass that is able to withstand our heat and our humidity of the summer. Now these grasses do go dormant during the winter, so it gives us those kind of brown color that a lot of people call dead. But it's not dead, it's just dormant. So those grasses we typically see are Bermuda grass, whether common or hybrid, zoysia grass, St. Augustine, and centipede. Now some yards will also be bahia or carpet grass, or a combination of the two. And those are typically our low maintenance areas that we just want coverage. So on our higher end of maintenance requirements, we have hybrid Bermuda grass and zoysia grass. And the difference between the two are the shade tolerances. Bermuda grass will not grow in shade. It wants at least 8 hours of direct sunlight, whereas zoysia grass can withstand as low as 5, so it does a little bit better in the shade. These grasses do have moderate to fine leaf texture, which means that the leaf is thinner, but they are heavy feeders, so we see a lot more fertilization, anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year. They do withstand traffic very well, so if this yard's going to see a lot of activity, a lot of play, they do a lot better. Then in terms of maintenance levels, we have St. Augustine grass. And St. Augustine is the most shade tolerant but most cold sensitive grass we have. It can withstand about 4 hours of direct sunlight. The leaf blade is finer, but it does well in our heat and in shaded areas. Then we have centipede grass, and for those people that they just want a yard that will look decent but they don't have to put a lot of work into it, that's centipede grass. It's also called lazy man grass. It does not want to be fertilized hardly ever. It's mostly drought tolerant. It can deal with shade. It still wants 5 to 7 hours of sunlight a day. And it does have a little bit of a yellow color, so some people will add iron to it to make it that darker green. The issues that we see with centipede and St. Augustine grass is that they are a lot more sensitive to our herbicides, so we do have to take that into account. So in terms of maintenance, we have our hybrid Bermudas and our zoysia grasses on the high end, and our low end we have carpet grass and bahia grass, then centipede, and then St. Augustine. And that's going from bottom up, all the way up to our Bermuda grasses and zoysia grass. So for my yard, I like to work in the yard. I don't mind putting a little bit more fertilizer into the ground. So I'm going with the Bermuda grass. You can always contact your extension agents to see what fits your needs best. They can always give the best recommendations for your area.
And the reason why I'm looking for 2 different types of grasses is because my yard receives, depending on what section you are, either at least 8 hours of light, or as little as 4. So this St. Augustine grass is a lot more shade tolerant. It's actually the most shade tolerant of all warm season grasses, whereas this Bermuda grass does not want shade. It wants at least 8 hours of direct sunlight. So the 2 combination will give me a good coverage throughout.
So that's really a short explanation on how to select grasses. You can always contact your extension agents to help you along the way. Next week we'll talk about how to select good sod or sprigs or seed as we move closer to our date of seeding, either the first week of May or the end of April. But as always, if you have questions or comments, feel free to share them in our comment section, and look forward to seeing you next week.